Sometimes before love ever finds you, life has to break you open. It's not cruelty, it's preparation. You might not see it while you're in the middle of the storm, when every part of you feels raw and scattered. But maybe you've noticed this. Life doesn't destroy what's real. It only removes what's built on illusions. And sometimes those illusions are the very things you swore you couldn't live without. There's a quiet ache that sits behind every strong person's eyes. It's not from the things they've lost, but from what they had to let go of before it destroyed them. You know that ache, don't you? The kind that whispers in the silence after the noise fades, the kind that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m, wondering when it will all make sense. What if all of this, the heartbreak, the confusion, the endings, wasn't punishment, but a kind of sacred reordering? What if life wasn't trying to take from you, but trying to make space for something real, something that wouldn't crumble under the weight of pretending? There's a truth most people never hear until they've bled for it. Before love arrives, life will test the places that love needs to reach. It will strip away every wall you've built to keep yourself safe. It will challenge the stories you've told yourself about who you are and what you deserve. It will make you meet the version of yourself that hides behind your smiles, the one who whispers, "I'm tired." You think life is breaking you, but maybe it's breaking the shell that keeps you small. And if you're listening to this right now, really listening, maybe that means you're in the middle of your own breaking. Maybe you've been through love that felt like home but left you homeless inside. Maybe you've been strong for too long, and you're starting to wonder who will ever see the softness beneath your strength. Stay here with me. Let's breathe together. Because there's a moment right before transformation where everything feels lost. It's the moment you realize you can't go back, but you don't yet know how to move forward. That space, that silence, that ache, it's where the rebuilding begins. In this space, we'll walk together, through the ruins of what once was, through the confusion of what's next, until the light begins to rise again, not outside of you, but from within you. If you've ever loved too deeply, or lost too painfully, or felt unseen in the places that mattered most, this is for you. And if these words find a home in your heart, I hope you'll stay. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own healing. Like this video if it speaks to you not because it's perfect, but because you're choosing to keep showing up for your own story. Because before love arrives, life breaks you not to destroy you, but to rebuild you into someone who can finally receive what you've always deserved. There's a strange silence that follows the breaking. It's not peaceful, not yet. It's heavy, like the air after a storm that hasn't decided whether it's finished. You wake up and go through the motions, but everything feels slightly out of focus. You smile when you have to, say "I'm fine" when people ask, and even you start to believe the lie for a while. But deep down, something's shifted. The ground beneath your old life no longer feels steady. This is the space life brings you to when it wants you to see yourself clearly. When everything that used to distract you, love, chaos, validation, noise, suddenly goes quiet. You start hearing the echo of your own voice again, and it sounds like someone you barely know. You realize how long you've been running from yourself, how often you've confused love with attention, or safety with silence. That's the first lesson of the breaking. You can't rebuild yourself until you meet the person you became trying to survive. You might remember how it started, the relationship that felt like home until it wasn't, the laughter that turned to distance, the way you gave and gave until your hands were empty. And when it ended, it wasn't just the loss of a person, it was the loss of who you were when you believed that love could fix everything. It's hard to admit that you stayed longer than you should have, that you kept trying to be enough for someone who never really saw you. But love, or what we thought was love, can make us small in ways we don't notice until the mirror cracks. And maybe you've been wondering, why do I keep attracting what hurts me? But the truth is, we attract what we think we deserve, until we learn differently. Until we realize that love is not meant to feel like walking on glass, apologizing for your softness, or begging for crumbs of attention. You begin to see how every heartbreak was really a mirror, each one reflecting a piece of your unfinished healing. You see how your childhood taught you to chase what was withheld, how you mistook intensity for intimacy, chaos for connection. But even in that realization, there's something sacred, because awareness is the first crack of light. And slowly, you stop asking why they left and start asking why you stayed. You stop asking why they couldn't love you and start asking why you accepted a love that required you to disappear. This is the second lesson life teaches before love arrives. Not everyone you lose is a loss. Some are lessons wrapped in human form. You start to look at your past differently, not as a collection of failures, but as a map of every place your heart refused to die. Every ending carved a path toward the kind of love that wouldn't cost you yourself. And then something beautiful begins to happen. You stop needing closure. You stop needing to prove your worth. You begin to rebuild not with the pieces of the old story, but with the truth you've gathered in the quiet. And maybe for the first time you sit alone and it doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like peace you've been waiting your whole life to remember. You begin to see that the breaking was never punishment. It was preparation. Life was never cruel. It was clearing space for a love that doesn't demand you to bleed to be believed. There's a moment, soft, almost unnoticeable, when the ache inside you starts to shift. You catch yourself laughing again, not because everything is fixed, but because you're no longer trying to fix everything. The weight begins to lift in places you didn't know were heavy. You find comfort in the small things. A song that hits differently now, sunlight through the window, the quiet hum of your own breath. That's how healing starts, not with grand revelations, but with subtle returns to yourself. It's not loud, not linear. Some days, you'll wake up ready to rebuild. Other days, it will feel like you're back at the beginning. But each time you break, you return with more truth in your hands. Life has this way of humbling us before it blesses us. It takes away the things we thought we couldn't live without, only to show us we were never meant to carry them forever. You see, before love arrives, the kind of love that stays you have to meet every part of yourself you abandoned to earn someone's approval. You have to hold the parts that never felt worthy and whisper, "I see you now. You can rest." This is where the rebuilding really begins. When you stop searching for someone to fill the emptiness and start realizing that emptiness was never a flaw, it was space. Space waiting for truth to grow. You begin to see how every heartbreak was sacred architecture, how every loss was clearing ground for something more honest, more aligned, more you. Life wasn't tearing you apart, it was returning you to yourself. You start to walk differently, not faster, not louder, but steadier. You don't chase anymore, you attract. You don't beg anymore, you receive. You don't perform anymore. You just exist, and that's enough. And that's when life begins to test you again. Because the universe always asks, have you really learned? It will send back familiar faces with different names. People who remind you of old wounds dressed in new words, situations that tempt you to shrink again. But this time, you pause, you breathe. You remember the breaking. You remember how long it took to rebuild. And you choose differently. You start saying no without guilt. You start walking away without explanation. You stop mistaking peace for boredom. You stop mistaking attention for love. This is the third lesson life teaches before love arrives. You cannot receive love until you stop betraying yourself to keep it. You begin to see that love isn't found in fireworks or obsession. It's in the quiet consistency. It's in the eyes that see you on your worst days and stay anyway. It's in the kind of connection that doesn't demand performance, only presence. And as you grow into that knowing, you realize something deeper. The love you've been waiting for has never been outside of you. It's always been the energy you give, the warmth you carry, the softness you protect. The right person, when they arrive, won't complete you. They'll meet you where you've already completed yourself. But before they arrive, life will make sure you've met every version of you that once settled for less. It will strip away every illusion so that when love finally comes, you can recognize it not as rescue, but as reflection. And one day, it happens. Not with a bang, not with lightning in the sky, but in a way so gentle you almost miss it. You wake up and realize you don't ache the same way anymore. The pain that once defined your days now feels like an old language you no longer speak. You can look back on the person you were, the one who begged, who broke, who tried so hard to be loved, and feel tenderness instead of shame. That's how healing reveals itself. Not as forgetting, but as remembering without collapsing. You see the places where you once bled, and you bless them for teaching you how deeply you could feel. You understand that the breaking wasn't the end of you, it was the birth of someone new. Life rebuilds you in whispers. It doesn't rush. It waits until you can stand in the silence and not need noise to feel alive. It waits until you stop calling the old pain home. And when it senses you're ready, it brings you a mirror disguised as another soul. They won't arrive with fireworks or grand gestures. They'll arrive with peace. They'll listen more than they talk. They'll see your scars and not flinch. They'll touch your hand like it's something sacred, not something to control. And suddenly, you'll realize why life made you wait, why it broke you first. Because this kind of love requires space. It needs room to breathe, to grow, to root itself in truth. You had to learn that love isn't chaos. It's calm. It's not a battle, it's belonging. You'll notice how safe it feels. And that safety might scare you at first, because you're used to equating love with tension, with the chase, with the ache of being almost enough. But this feels still. It feels honest. And for a moment, your mind might whisper that it's too easy, too quiet, but your heart will know it's real. This is the fourth lesson life teaches before love arrives. Peace will feel foreign when you've lived in survival. You'll catch yourself waiting for the pain to return, for the disappointment to arrive dressed as affection. But it won't, because you've learned how to choose differently now. You've learned to listen to your body when it tightens, to your spirit when it says no, and to your intuition when it whispers, "This feels right." You'll look at this new love and see how different you are too, how you no longer apologize for needing space, how you no longer shrink to be digestible, how you no longer mistake being chosen for being valued. And you'll finally understand, life didn't break you to harden you. It broke you to soften you, to strip away the armor that kept love from reaching you. You'll feel gratitude for the endings that once wrecked you. You'll see that without them, you would have never found this version of peace. And maybe, sitting across from this person, this mirror, you'll smile quietly. Not because they completed your story, but because they joined it. You'll know love has arrived, not as rescue, not as distraction, but as recognition. And in that moment, you'll whisper to yourself, this is what it was all for. There's a stillness that follows true love, the kind that doesn't demand, doesn't take, doesn't fill silence with noise, just to feel close. It's not an escape from loneliness, it's an arrival. You realize that love isn't supposed to set you on fire just to prove it's real. It's supposed to hold you gently enough that you can finally exhale. You no longer chase intensity. You crave honesty. You don't want promises written in the heat of the moment. You want consistency in the quiet hours. You've learned that love doesn't live in grand gestures. It lives in small truths. In the way they remember how you take your coffee, in the way they see you when you think no one is watching, in the way you both choose each other, not because you're afraid to be alone, but because you finally know the difference between need and connection. You start to see how life has been leading you here all along. Every heartbreak, every loss, every lonely night, it wasn't random. It was shaping your heart to hold something deeper, something steady. It was teaching you the kind of love that doesn't hurt to keep. And as you sit in this peace, you realize the journey was never about finding love. It was about remembering you were worthy of it all along. You no longer need to prove yourself to be chosen. You no longer confuse chaos with passion. You no longer beg to be seen. You have become the kind of person who sees themselves clearly. Life has rebuilt you quietly, completely. And when you look back, you understand that the breaking was mercy. It was grace disguised as pain. Because had life not torn you open, you might have spent forever settling for almost love, mistaking survival for connection. Now, you move through the world differently. You walk lighter. You speak softer, not because you're weak, but because you're no longer fighting to be heard. You listen deeper. You love slower. You know that real love doesn't rush. It unfolds. You find beauty in the ordinary. Morning light on your skin. The sound of rain against the window. The way your own laughter surprises you sometimes. These small moments, once invisible, are now proof that healing worked, that you've come home to yourself. And sometimes, late at night, you'll remember who you used to be, the one who clung too tightly, who mistook silence for safety, who begged for love that could never stay. You'll want to reach back through time, hold their trembling hands, and whisper, "You made it. It hurt, but you made it." That's the final lesson life teaches before love arrives. The breaking was the bridge. The pain was the teacher. The waiting was sacred. Because love, the kind that stays, only finds those who have learned to stay with themselves first. And now, you have. So, if these words have found you, if they've touched the part of you that's been quiet for too long, know this: you're not broken. You're becoming. Life breaks you to rebuild you, not into who you were, but into who you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for staying. If this spoke to your heart, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe if you want more reminders that healing is not the end, it's the beginning. And until we meet again, breathe, forgive yourself often, and remember, before love arrives, life breaks you, only so you can finally receive it whole.